Hi everyone, thanks for joining me in this video in which I'll discuss Mist and Other Ghost Stories by Richmal Crompton. This book was first published in 1928. It has 13 stories of the supernatural and the occult, and it's the only book of short stories written by Richmal Crompton to deal with this subject matter. The first edition is incredibly difficult to get hold of now, but fortunately, after around 6 months of talks with the literary agents that handle Richmal Crompton's estate, Sundial Supernatural Press were able to reprint the book. It's fantastic quality as well, it's really good. It starts with an introduction by Richard Dolby, which talks about Richmal Crompton and also his experience with finding the book. Interestingly, a lot of these books now, like also with the stories by Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of the stories can appear supernatural, but also, with what we know now about psychology, they can also appear as psychological stories. One such story is The Spanish Comb, in which we see a wife and mother getting ready for evening supper, and she sees a husband talking to the nanny in the garden, at which point her father-in-law brings her a Spanish comb to put in her hair. She then gets very angry at her husband and the nanny, thinking that they're having an affair, and this rage builds up inside her. Eventually she collapses, and later on that evening she's returned back to normal, and the comb, which had fallen off during this rage, is handed back to her, and she immediately throws it on the fire. And we're left thinking, now, did the Spanish comb actually have this power? Was it cursed? Was it just repeating the history it had before? Or was this just coincidental? Was the woman feeling a bit insecure at that point in time? Had the husband maybe silly with how he was talking to the nanny, or spending too much time with the nanny and not with the wife? You know, we don't know. It's a short story, so it ends there. But a lot of the stories, clearly there are some supernatural stories, some that deal with the god Pan. The Haunting of Greenways was a very good one, and also The House Behind the Wood. And these sorts of stories, a lot of them in this book deal with houses. And in these stories we find that things have happened within a house, and then people return years later not knowing the history of the house or the events that happened there. And only to find out later on that all these things that they experienced had actually happened in the past. It tends to be on an anniversary. Those sorts of key things reappear within the stories, but often in quite different ways. There's no story that Richmal Crompton writes that is so similar to another that it's not unique. Another of Crompton's books, this time a novel that I would like to read, is called The House or Dread Dwelling. That was published in 1926. It's about a Tudor house that over the centuries witnesses lots of suicide and just dreadful unhappiness. It turns out, similarly in Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, which was published later, it turns out that the house itself was a being of the occult. So that's someone that I would definitely like to read again. Thanks have to go out to Sundial Supernatural Press for sticking with it and getting this book republished. They're looking at doing other Crompton books in the future. Fingers crossed that this happens, because I think there is still a readership out there. The book's available as a Kindle, and also in this hardback edition it was restricted to 265 unnumbered copies, so it's a very limited edition book. It's really nice to have it in the collection, and it was my first dive into Richmal Crompton's adult stories, and it amazed me just how different they are. If I hadn't have known the author, I definitely wouldn't have associated them with William Brown. It's fantastic to see just how versatile Richmal Crompton was as an author, and it really makes me want to delve even deeper. So I've got a few books loaded up on my e-reader. I've also ordered a few other books just to see just how Richmal Crompton wrote differently for different audiences. So recently I got the two Jimmy books, which were aimed for an audience younger than the William Brown books, and also Enter Patricia, which I'm very much looking forward to reading. So yeah, I'll do more videos about those as I read them. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.